Good afternoon, everyone. We're improvising a little bit because, as you can see, I'm pretty short and this podium is pretty tall. So I want to thank the organizers for doing that. So my name is Pakou Hang, and before I begin, I just want to start off by thanking the organizers for this conference, because I know that folks put in a lot of work to get us all here, to learn and to be mobilized and be organized around food access. So can we give a round of applause to all the organizers who put this conference together? And I also want to do a special shout out to my friend Liz Johnson, who actually was the reason why I got hooked up with Amy and Ryan, and I'm actually at this conference. So I just want to thank Liz. She always reminds me that, one person can change the world, but it's a lot more fun when you have friends to do it with. So thank you to Liz. And then, yay Liz. And then lastly, I just want to thank you, right, folks who are in the audience, because I know that every day you guys are actually at the front lines working on the issue of hunger, working on the issue of food access to make sure that our neighbors are being healthy and that we have good communities. And so I want to thank you. I mean, today's August. It's August. I don't know about you, but I'm very nostalgic about how the summer is almost gone. And yet, even in that midst, you've actually taken time out of your busy schedules to come out here to talk about this really important issue. So I want to thank you not only for being here, but also for the great work that you guys are doing back at home. So I want to actually just take a couple of minutes, and I want to tell you a little bit about the power, or talk to you a little bit about the power of now. And as you heard from my bio, I'm actually, I helped co-found, and I'm working with the Hmong American Farmers Association. We are a member-based nonprofit located in St. Paul, and we work to build the capacity of and opportunities for Hmong American farmers in Minnesota. And I've actually been farming with my family for about 20 years, and I'll be honest with you guys, when we were farming, I hated it. Right? I actually studied really hard so that I would never have to farm, because it's a hard work, it's backbreaking work, it's always unpredictable, and I think that there's actually a lot of other farm kids like me who are like working hard, going to college to make sure we didn't have to go and farm. And it's funny thing is that when I was growing up, I always imagined a good job was a job that actually had air conditioning in the summertime, right? Because that was like the pinnacle of success. Well, anyways, about 2 years ago, I actually received a Bush Fellowship. And I was tasked to investigate some of the opportunities and challenges that were facing Hmong farmers. And we saw that there was an explosion of the local foods movement. But when I was looking at my Hmong farmers and my mom and my dad, I was like, wait a minute, how come Hmong farmers, who are really at the forefront of the local foods movement, how come we weren't benefiting from it? In fact, many Hmong farmers were doing worse off than they were previously, right? They were doing better in the past than they were actually while this local movement was exploding. And so I met with a lot of Hmong people. I did a lot of town hall meetings. I did a lot of one-to-ones. And I always imagined in this fellowship that maybe within 2 years, maybe in 3 years, I would probably have to make some kind of recommendation about how there should be a nonprofit that should be created, that it should be that it should exist to just advocate solely for Hmong farmers. But I always thought that I would only give the recommendation, and I always thought that it would be someone else who would actually be tasked to do it, right? Well, in October 2011, I was asked actually to organize a meeting between Hmong farmers and a whole group of these social investors who were actually from out of town, and they were in Minneapolis for a national conference. But before they actually started their conference, they wanted to just get together with Hmong farmers and find out, they wanted to talk to like a local immigrant business owners. And so I was tasked to bring these Hmong farmers to talk to these social investors. And it was really an amazing experience, because I had all my Hmong farmers come, and it was this really beautiful room, and there was like these white linen on the table, there were these beautiful bouquets, and I could see my Hmong farmers actually putting their shoulders back, they were lifting their heads, and they were talking so strongly about some of their struggles with agriculture, but also so many of their hopes and dreams for their children that they would hope would be manifested through their farmers market or through their culture. And it was such a powerful moment, right? One farmer actually said, I've been waiting for this moment in 20 years, because you've been farming for 20 years. She said, I've been waiting for 20 years for someone to ask me what it's like to farm. And so at the end of that discussion, and it was like amazing, everybody was just blown away by the conversation. At the end of it, all these Hmong farmers came to me and they said, Pakou, we have to create some kind of organization that's advocating for us. And since no one else will do it, we have to do it for ourselves, right? And it was weird because I had always thought that one day I would make the recommendation, right? And one day there would be this nonprofit and someone else would do it. And suddenly in this space, the idea was there, right? And the idea just blossomed. And I couldn't walk away from it. I couldn't deny it. And so just maybe 3 days later, after that meeting, we actually submitted the application into the Minnesota Secretary of State, and the Hmong American Farmers Association was created, right? And I shared that story with you because I think that oftentimes when we are in situations where we have never been in, it can be very scary. And our instinct is to not go, right? To not go close to that ledge because we could fall, right? And I'm telling you that I think in times like this, we especially have to be brave and do things that we're scared of. So in addition, right, in addition to the Hmong American Farmers Association, I work with an organization that I know Nevada's gonna talk about a little bit more, called Women's Leadership Works, right? And we are an organization that goes around the country. We work with women to develop their leadership skills, and then we train them to actually run for public office. And I was at one of these trainings in Texas, in Dallas, Texas, and there was this young woman. She's probably about her mid-20s, and her name was Tao. And she's actually a clinical social worker. So she actually works at the schools with children who've experienced, deep trauma. And she was telling this story about how her mother didn't have health insurance, and they were immigrants, and her mother didn't have health insurance. And when her mother got cancer, Tao and her dad actually had to cut a part of her mom's breast and take out the lump. Right? And Tao ends this story with, oh, and by the way, I was only in 9th grade when this happened, right? And I was just blown away by her courage and her bravery. And I was a little bit shell-shocked, actually. Like, I finished the training, but I was like, oh my God, what's happening? And afterwards, I went to her and I said, Tao, would you ever consider running for public office? Because you obviously have the experience, you have the fortitude, so many people would be able to identify with your story. And this is so typical of women especially, right? So typical. She says, oh, Pakou, no, I've only got 1 master's. I'm working on my PhD. When I'm done with my PhD, then I'll be ready, right? How many of us have heard that before? Like, when my last kid is, graduated from high school, then I'll, do this, right? Or when the business is up and running, then I'll do that, right? But the funny thing, I was just like, you're so crazy. You're ready right now. And I think the same thing I want to say to you all is that for many times when we are in this work, especially in this deep work, social justice work of food justice and creating a good food system, oftentimes we can look at other people and say, wow, they're much more credentialed, right? Or they're much more experienced, or I'm just doing this work, like this is not my time. But just like I'm telling Tao, I'm gonna tell you guys, like, you are totally ready, right? And not only ready, who better to actually step up into this position, step up into these great works of struggles than you, because you have that experience, right? Dr. Salvador just got done talking to us about how, nationally the time is now to work around this food access system. And I know that locally, we know that food access is still a problem for many of our neighbors. So when I'm talking to Tao, I'm also talking to you. Are you ready? Right? The next couple of days, we're going to be talking about how we can not only educate ourselves, but how we can mobilize our community to actually take action on food justice, right? But as we're having that discussion, I want you to ask yourself, where are you in that picture? Are you ready to step forward? And if not, why not? Are you scared? Right? Are you like right across that ledge and like, am I gonna make that jump? And if you are, there are going to be all of us to catch you, right? Do you think you're not ready? If you're not ready, who is ready, right? And if that person who's going to step up, if you're going to have a problem with that person, and you're going to say, wow, that person is the problem, look at, there are actually 3 fingers that are pointing back at you, right? So in the next couple of days, I just want you to challenge yourself to think about, if you are not ready, who is ready? And if that person's not right, then maybe you are the one who should be stepping up. And I want to just end with a quote from someone who's so much more eloquent than I am when we are talking about the power of now, right? This is actually Dr. Martin Luther King, and he wrote, "We are now faced with the fact that tomorrow is today. We are confronted with the fierce urgency of now. In this unfolding conundrum of life and history, there is such a thing as being too late. Procrastination is still the thief of time, and we may cry out desperately for time to pause in her process, but time is deaf to every plea, and rushes on. Over that bleached bones and jumbled residue of numerous civilizations are written the pathetic words, "Too late." There is an invisible book of life that faithfully records our vigilance or our neglect, and the moving fingers write and have written, "Moving on." But today, we still have a choice. And so the time is now for you all to step up in your leadership to help us build this great society around food access. So I want to thank you, and I want to hand it over to my sister, Nevada.
Thanks, Pakou. Thanks, Pakou. If you want to, you could sit down. I'm really super excited about being here today. When I walked in the room and I saw all the people that were here, it just got me like really super excited to see so many people working on this issue. And can somebody tell me what their water bottle says or what their bag says that they got from the summit today? I am a leader. So that's what we're here to really talk about this week, and specifically today is about leadership and our own leadership in this work. We all get into the work around access and justice for different reasons, and there's something that drives us to do this individually. It could be our upbringings, a specific life event, a mentor. Maybe it's our children that push us to look to the future, or an elder that reminds us of our history. But whatever the reason is, we're here doing this work, and we are doing the work. So what sparks us out of simply just doing the work to actually leading in a meaningful way in our work? I've been involved in community building, organizing, advocacy, leadership development for years. Really, since I was a teenager, I started doing this type of work. Yet, I was 30 years old before I finally decided to run for public office and take that step out into public leadership. In public leadership, 30 is actually considered quite young. I filed my candidacy as a city councilor on my 31st birthday, and I can remember that day vividly, July 17th, 2007. I had bought myself this like beautiful bright blue birthday dress, and I took my kids, who at that time were age, my daughter was 5 and my son was 7. I took them to the early matinee of the movie Ratatouille. You guys know what that movie, the rat who just loves cooking, and in the end you find that you can find great things in really unexpected places. So having never seen the movie for the first time, brought my kids home, went and picked up my friend and my mentor, Jane, who's kind of been there with me for a long time since I was young, brought her with me down to City Hall, parked my 1990 Ford Escort, which was our family car at the time, out in front of City Hall, and was getting ready to go in to file for City Council. So I'm in there, and I decided to call my dad for some extra encouragement because I was still incredibly nervous to go inside. It was 4 p.m. on the last day to file, so in that moment, I was either in or out, and obviously, I went in. Throughout my life, like many of you, I'm sure, in a generalized way, I'd been told and encouraged to be a leader and told I can be a leader and, told to run for office. But it was always like someday or somewhere. But it was different in the city council race in Virginia, Minnesota in 2007, because I was actually asked to run by folks that I knew and respected, and I was asked to participate and to lead for my community. And it felt strange to me that people, in fact, several people that I knew, would come and ask me to do such a thing. And also knowing that they were there to help me and support me through this kind of crazy process and this crazy endeavor that I really didn't know a lot about, that made it all the more possible in my mind to actually do it. So for some, stepping into a leadership role is very easy, and it comes really easily for them. And for some, it should. We see across the country, from small town to national positions, that leaders sort of look a certain way, right? So if you fit those criteria, it's going to be easier for you to step into a leadership position. I think Pakou talked about this a little bit earlier with the woman she trained, and how you just always think that you have to go get that extra degree, or you have to have that extra piece of experience to step into those roles. And so for some people, it feels really comfortable to be there, and they feel like they should be there, and I think in some ways we support that as well. Like, of course they should be there. For others like me, it was a much bigger leap to do that, to go and file for city council and to run. But truly, if we want to see, the people in this room want to see impactful changes in our communities and in our work, we need to start bumping up against that idea that leaders only look a certain way. And we need to challenge ourselves and the others around us to bump up against that as well. So diversity in leadership, what difference does it make? So let's say that we have a problem to solve, and we do, right? What's our problem that we're looking at today? This whole conference is about food access, food justice, right? So we're gonna solve that problem. And I'm gonna say that, let's say over here, right in the front over here, this table is a group of experts, and I think they are a group of experts, right? And then over here we have a group of really diverse people. They're diverse in age, ethnicity, geography, income, gender, and vocation, and they've been affected by food access issues, but we wouldn't consider them to be experts. So we give each of these tables the same problem and say, we want you to solve this problem, and we want you to give us a good solution. Conventional wisdom would say that the group of experts are going to come up with a better solution. But in fact, study after study shows this. It's the diverse group of people that actually give us a better answer to the problem. So for the past 6 years in my public service, on a council of 6 plus the mayor, which makes it 7, I've been the only woman, the only person under the age of 55, the only person with school-aged children, the only American Indian person ever elected in our city, despite the large population of American Indian people in our town. And I don't say this because I'm being boastful, because I actually personally don't think it's something to brag about. And I'm not saying this to diminish the other men that I work with in any way, because I respect them a lot. They're my colleagues. And so I think that it's good that I'm there, because we need to have some diverse representation. But the fact remains that we can't solely rely on one person to carry the weight of a diverse representation for our communities. And unfortunately, often this is the case, and this is what you'll see in communities. I think Duluth has been amazing, because there's been a lot of diversity in the last, I would say, 10 years on their council and their representation. But if you look to smaller towns and even statewide representation, the diversity is still coming. And our city has had many challenges over the last 6 years of my service. I do know that my voice has been unique, impactful, and really important in our decision-making process. And I just want to talk about one project that I actually got to lead on. So this is about our municipal greenhouse and botanical garden. So Shannon, if you could just start bringing up the pictures, at least the first one. In our city park, we have this facility that was built in the 1920s, and it was gifted to our city by the mining company. Back when the big mining industry was really booming, we got a lot of things from the mining companies up on the Iron Range. And in the last 90 years, the city's done very little to upgrade this facility. And in fact, over the last 20 years, resources have slowly been taken away from this. And we consider it to be a historical and functional city treasure for us. Part of it is a botanical garden, and part of it was used for planting and potting our city, our flowers for our flower beds throughout the city. So over the last 20 years, we've slowly reduced staff and taken away all the planting, and now basically all we were doing was, sort of keeping our greenskeeper there to keep the plants alive in our botanical garden. We didn't have open hours, and we weren't adding any resources in. And so in my first year on the council, we, like all cities, were facing severe budget cuts related to LGA and the declining economy. This was in 2008. And I was told that if I couldn't find a way to make our greenhouse more economically sustainable or cost effective, that surely the city would be making a decision just to tear the facility down and get rid of it completely, because of the cost to operate it was not worth it, is what the other councilors had said. And we all know that change does not come quickly, and it takes time to fully develop a project. But I'm really proud to say that in the past 5 years, I've not only ensured that the facility would not be demolished, I was also able to bring in the University of Minnesota scholars to conduct a feasibility study in partnership with our community members and our city leadership. It was able to raise nearly $1 million in resources for infrastructure improvements and sustainable energy, including locally manufactured photovoltaic solar. I was able to assist the nonprofit organization, the Friends of the Greenhouse, to build their own capacity and their own new leadership. They just went through a strategic planning session and board development session this spring. Really robust training, really good for their organization. We actually have somebody in the room, Sean Haney, who is a new board member with the Friends of the Greenhouse. I'm glad to see that he's here. We held the first of several public events in the last year, which we had not had public events in the greenhouse for many years. And we held a Reiki event, which was, we had massage therapists come in. We held an open house with bands, locally brewed beer, local music, and then public officials coming and speaking. We have had the Friends of the Greenhouse develop merchandise that they're selling and then create this beautiful sign, which I have some more pictures that you'll be able to see. And along with that, I think, and how it relates to food access and justice, not only did we just get the facility to the point where now we're kind of at a launching point, but we also have been researching and taking field trips and looking to like implement food production and different educational components. So we took a field trip out to Growing Power out in Milwaukee. Who knows who Will Allen is? Yeah, I would expect most of the, I met him once up here in Duluth at UMD, and I like to now say that he's like a friend of mine because he's like a true hero of mine. And so look at some of the models that he developed out in Milwaukee around local food production and urban farming, and then also some of the work like in Silver Bay, the Silver Bay model. So none of this would have happened, and you can, okay, you did click through all the pictures. None of this would have happened if I hadn't been asked to lead in my community and actually taken that risk to run and then lead on this project. So what I'm doing today is I really want to challenge you to see yourself as a leader and to know your own story. We're going to be talking about that a lot in the breakout sessions that are coming up, and to stay inspired in your work, and just to remember to bring in new and diverse people to the table with you, because that's going to really help you. So I have the honor and really distinct privilege to work and train on gender issues. I've been doing this for the last 5 years with Pakou and the team from Women's Leadership Works. They brought me into their fold, and like they have brought so many others. We're incredibly lucky to have them here with us today. They all train, mentor, inspire regionally, nationally, and internationally. We have, I'm just going to quickly run through, because I think I have a minute left here, quickly run through our training team. Erin is here from New York City. If Erin, could you stand up? Rhonda is here from Georgia. Shannon is here from Michigan. We met Pakou from St. Paul already. And then we have 3 Duluth folks, Liz Johnson, Beth Olson, and Lori. If you're in the room, just stand up and wave. Okay, so before we send you off to your leadership sessions that are happening next, Tiki has a couple of housekeeping items that she wants to just share with you before we move on.